barn door dragged open on a rusted track, and the light fell on 4 figures pressed into the hayloft above. Tall, all of them, even the small one. Black hair, green skin, eyes that did not blink. The largest rose to a crouch, one hand flat against the loft beam, and spoke before he could. "Walk away," she said. "There is nothing here for you." He did not walk away. He stood in the doorway with the deed still folded in his coat, and he understood that the cheapest farm in the county had not been empty after all. 3 days before that, he had bought it at the county steps for the price of its back taxes. The auction was a short thing. A clerk read the parcel number, the years owed, the figure. No one else bid. The land had sat tax delinquent so long the county had given up on it, and a farm sold for back taxes goes to whoever raises his hand. He raised his hand. The clerk wrote his name without looking up, and that was the whole of it. He had wanted it that way, cheap and far and forgotten. His wife had been gone 2 winters. He did not say the word for what she had been to him, not even to himself, because saying it made the house behind him in town too quiet to stand. So he had sold the house. He had taken the money to the county steps and bought a ruin, and he had told himself that a man with enough work in front of him doesn't have time to grieve. He was good with his hands. That much had never left him. He could mend a fence and set a post. He could patch a roof that had been open to the weather. He could coax a crop from soil that everyone else had called dead, if it came to that. He had done harder things than this. In years he tried not to count. The farm met him the way he expected. A lane choked with brush, fences gone to slant and gap, a house with a sagging porch and a well with a frayed rope. Past it all, the barn, leaning a little, its high gable door hanging crooked on one hinge. He had walked the fields first, then the house. He left the barn for last, the way a man leaves the heaviest thing for when his arms are warm. When he finally hauled the door back, he heard them before he saw them. A small sound up in the dark, the shift of weight on old boards, hay sifting down through a seam of light. He looked up, and 4 faces looked back. He did not reach for anything. He had nothing to reach for, and they could see that. "This land was abandoned," he said. His voice came out level. Not a threat. A fact. "It was not," the largest one answered. "Not by us." For a long moment, no one moved. The dust hung in the gold light between them. He counted 4. The smallest could not have been more than a child, gripping the elbow of the one beside her, watching him with the unblinking patience of something that had learned to wait. He looked at the hay door above their heads, the one good high opening, the only way down that was not past him. He looked at the deed in his coat. He thought of the empty house he had sold, and the quiet he had paid to escape. Then he stepped back from the doorway and let the light in. "You can come down," he said. "Or you can stay up there. I have a roof to look at either way." None of them came down, but the largest one watched him cross the yard, and something in her face was not quite trust. Not yet. Only the first small surprise of a door left open. In the last of the light, he walked the land, the way a man walks a wound, slow, touching the worst of it. The fences came first. Whoever had built them once, and never again. The rails had slipped their posts. Some posts had rotted at the ground and leaned until the whole line sagged toward the field. Stake and rider work, the old kind, gone soft. He set his hand on a top rail, and it gave under his weight, dry as a bone left in the sun. He did not curse it. He counted it. So many posts to cut, so many rails to set back in their slots. The arithmetic of it steadied him. The fields were worse and easier both. Worse because nothing grew in them but the brown stubble of years no one had planted. Easier because dead soil was a thing he knew. He crouched and worked a handful loose and let it fall through his fingers. Not poisoned, just tired. Tired could be fed. Tired could be turned and rested and brought back if a man had the seasons and the patience for it. He had the patience. He had little else, but he had that. The house he left half looked at. A sagging porch, a door that stuck, a well with a rope frayed to threads. He would not trust that rope with a full bucket. He made the note and moved on. The barn he came back to last, as he had before. He did not go in. He stood in the yard with his hands loose at his sides and looked at the high gable door hanging crooked on its one hinge, and he thought about the 4 faces in the dark above it. He could fix the roof. He could see from the yard where it had opened to the weather, a long seam of grey sky showing through the shingles. He could patch it board by board. He could split a winter's wood from the dead timber in the lane. He could do all of it with his own 2 hands, the way he had done harder things. What he could not do was make 4 strangers come down out of his hayloft. So he did not try. He built a small fire in the yard instead, well clear of the barn, because hay and flame were a bad pair, and he knew it. He set a pot over the coals. When it was hot, he filled a tin bowl and carried it halfway to the barn, and set it down in the dirt, where the light from the open door would find it. Then he walked back to his fire, and sat with his back to the wood pile, and ate his own share, and said nothing. He did not look up at the loft. He had learned, with horses and with grieving men, that a thing watched too closely will not move at all. For a long time, nothing happened. The fire ticked. An owl crossed the yard once on silent wings. The cold came down off the ridge the way it did out here, fast and without mercy, and he pulled his coat tighter and stayed where he was. Late, when the coals had gone low and red, he heard the soft give of a board overhead, a long pause, then the scrape of the tin bowl being drawn back into the dark. He did not turn around. He let out a slow breath and looked at the fire. Not trust. He knew better than that. A hungry thing will take food from a man it still means to run from. It was less than trust and more than nothing. It was the first small proof that the door he had left open had been seen. He banked the coals and lay down in the open bed of the wagon, his coat for a blanket, the dead farm dark around him, and the leaning barn darker still. Somewhere above the crooked gable door, 4 strangers waited out the night the same as he did. He slept badly. But he slept. That was something he had not done in town for a long time. She came down in the grey before sunrise, while he was setting the first new post. He heard the ladder boards take her weight, slow and even, and he kept his hands on the post. He did not turn. A man who spins around with a tool in his fist tells a frightened thing exactly what it feared. So he tamped the dirt and waited, and let her cross the yard to him in her own time. When he straightened, she was already close, and she was tall, taller than him by a head, all of it standing, and none of it leaning. The light was coming up behind the ridge, and it caught her black hair where it fell loose over her shoulders, and it caught the green of her skin and the flat, steady weight of her eyes. She stopped 2 paces off, close enough to reach him. She wanted him to know she could. "You did not run us out in the night," she said. Her voice was low and careful. Not a question. A thing she was turning over. "No," he said. "Why?" He looked at the post in the ground, then back at her. "Where would you go?" he said. It came out plain, not unkind. He had asked himself the same thing about himself more than once. Something moved behind her eyes, and then went still. "There are 4 of us," she said. "My sisters. The youngest is a child. We have walked a long way, and there is nowhere ahead of us that is safe. This barn was empty. The land was empty." Her chin lifted. "It was not yours when we found it." "It's mine now," he said. "Bought it for the back taxes, 3 days ago." He let that sit. But a deed doesn't put anybody out in the cold. That's a choice a man makes after. She studied him for a long moment, the way a person reads weather they do not trust. Behind her, at the foot of the ladder, the other three had gathered in the barn's mouth. Two near-grown, watchful, standing the way she stood, and between them the small one, gripping a sister's sleeve, peering around her hip at him with wide, unblinking eyes. The child was tall already, the way they all were, but a child still. She had hay in her hair, and she had not learned yet to hide what she felt, and what she felt was plain curiosity. He let his gaze pass over them once, and come back to the eldest. He did not stare. He had counted what he needed to count. 4. A child among them. "I won't lie to you," he said. "I came out here to be alone. I sold everything I had to be alone." He set his boot to the next post, and rocked it to feel the rot. "But the roof leaks over your heads, same as mine, and one man can't hold a rafter and nail it at once." "You are offering us work," she said slowly, like she did not believe the shape of it. "I'm offering you a reason to stay that isn't charity," he said. "Easier for both of us, I think." She was quiet. The child whispered something, and was hushed. The cold burned off the grass, and the first real light poured down into the dead fields in one long pass of gold, and for a moment the whole ruined place looked like something that could be saved. "I will think on it," the eldest said at last. "Think on it from inside the barn," he said, and bent back to his post. "Wind's coming off the ridge." She did not answer, but she did not go far either. When he glanced up some while later, she was standing in the barn door, with her arms crossed, watching him work, and it was not trust on her face. Not yet. It was the look of someone who had stopped, just for a breath, waiting for the floor to fall out from under her. She gave him her answer at midday, with the sun straight overhead, and the new posts standing in a short, clean row behind him. "We will stay," the eldest said. "We will work. We will not take what is not given." She said it like terms read off a page, each line set down separate. "When the cold breaks, if you want us gone, we go. No argument." "Agreed," he said. That was the whole of the bargain. No hands shaken, no paper. A man and a tall green woman standing 6 feet apart in a dead field, each watching the other for the lie. There was none on either side, and they both saw that, and it was enough to go on. "You have names," he said. It was not quite a question. She told him hers. She told him her sister's, one by one, nodding to the barn where the other three had come to the door to listen. He said them back once, slow, to fix them. He did not ask where they had come from or what they were walking from. A man learns when to leave a thing unopened. "You can use the barn," he said. "Fix it as yours. I'll work the house and the fence. The roof we do together. I can't hold a rafter and nail it at the same time." "No one can," the eldest said. There was no warmth in it, only agreement. They started that afternoon with the rails. He had cut a stack of new rails from the dead timber in the lane, good and straight, but green wood is heavy, and a full rail dragged at his shoulders till they burned. He had been hauling them one at a time, end over end, slow. The second sister came out to the fence line without being asked. She took the far end of a rail he was wrestling and lifted it clear of the ground as though it weighed nothing at all, and held it level and waited. He looked at her across the length of the wood. "Slots at the post," he said. "Easy down." They set it in one motion. It dropped into the notch clean and sat. He stood back and looked at it, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long while, which was the simple ease of work shared between two people who knew what they were doing. He did not say so. He picked up the next rail. They worked the line till dusk, the two of them, and the eldest mended the leaning barn door, and the third sister hauled deadfall to the woodpile in armloads that would have bent him double. The smallest one carried what she could, a single split log at a time, walking it to the pile with great care and great seriousness, and no one told her to stop. By dark, a whole span of fence stood true. The barn door hung straight on a hinge he hadn't had to touch. The cold came down off the ridge again, hard, and this time when he built the fire in the yard, the eldest came and set a second, larger fire near the barn mouth, well back from the hay, the way he had the night before. She had watched him do it once. She had learned the rule and kept it. He marked that and said nothing. They did not eat together. He ate at his fire. The four ate at theirs, the child's voice carrying thin and bright across the yard, then hushed. 2 fires in a dead farmyard, 50 feet apart, and no bridge between them yet. But the fence stood. The work had held, and the bargain had held, and a man and 4 strangers had passed a whole day without anyone reaching for anything but a tool. It was not trust. It was the frame you build before trust, post by post, rail by rail. He lay down in the wagon bed and looked at the 2 fires burning low and thought that the frame, at least, was square. On the 3rd day, the eldest set a portion of their own supper on the flat stone halfway between the 2 fires and walked back without a word. He looked at it for a while before he crossed to take it. It was a coarse flat bread, dense and dark, nothing he knew. He ate it at his fire and found it good. The next night he set his pot of beans on the same stone and walked back the same way, and in the morning the pot was scrubbed clean and turned upside down to dry. Neither of them spoke of it. The stone did the speaking. On the 4th day, they finished the long fence line together. He sighted down it from the corner post, and it ran true the whole way, post by post, rail by rail, the first thing on the place that was whole. The second sister stood at the far end and sighted down it the same way he did, and when their eyes met across the length of it, she gave him a short nod. He gave it back. That was the entire exchange, and it carried more than most conversations he had had in 2 years. On the 5th day, they did the roof. He went up first, and the eldest came up after him, sure-footed on the pitch in a way that told him heights were nothing to her. They worked the long seam where the sky showed through. He fit the boards and held them, and she drove the nails, her arm coming down once where his would have needed 3 blows. He laid the shingle, and she set the next so its lip caught the rain. They did not need many words for it. A roof has its own grammar, and they both spoke it. By dusk the seam was closed. He sat on the ridge and looked out over the dead fields gone gold in the low light, and the leaning barn that did not lean any more, and for a moment the weight he carried set itself down on its own. That was when the smallest one started talking. She had climbed halfway up the ladder to watch, chin on a rung, and she was telling a story. It had no clear beginning, and it went in circles. There was a fox in it, and then the fox was her grandmother, and then the fox was a star that had come down to the river to drink and could not get back up, so the sisters had carried it home in a basket and fed it on plums until it was strong enough to climb the sky again. She told it all in one breath, the way children do, certain of every word. "Is that true?" he said. He did not know why he asked. He had not meant to speak. The child considered him with great seriousness. "Some of it," she said. Up on the ridge, the eldest made a low sound he had not heard from her before. It took him a moment to understand it was something close to a laugh, or the memory of one. She did not correct the child. None of them ever corrected the child. He looked back out at the gold fields, so the smile would not show on his face, and he let it sit there anyway, where no one could see it. That night he built his fire, and they built theirs. But the fires were closer than they had been. No one had decided it out loud. The stone with the supper on it sat between, and the distance had simply narrowed, a foot at a time, over 5 days of work that held. It was not friendship yet. He knew the difference, but the bread had been shared, and the roof was closed over all their heads, and the child had told him a story she did not have to tell. It was the possibility of something. He banked his coals and let that be enough. That night there was only one fire. He had not planned it. He had built his in the usual place, and she had come and sat across the coals from him, and the others drifted over too until the two fires were one. No one named it. The cold pressed in off the ridge, and that was reason enough. The sisters slept one by one. The child went first, folded against the eldest's side, then the other two, until it was the two of them awake, and the low red coals and the wide dark. For a long time neither spoke. He had learned to be easy in a silence, and so he saw, had she? "You had a wife," she said finally. Not a question. She had read it off him the way she read weather. "2 winters back," he said. He turned a stick in the fire. "She got sick in the fall. By the spring she was gone." He had never said it that plain to anyone. "I kept the house a year. Couldn't stand the quiet of it. So I sold it and bought the cheapest thing the county had, far as I could get." She took that in and did not offer him the soft words people offered. She only nodded, like he had told her the depth of a well. "We had a mother," she said after a while, "and a place. Neither is left to us." She did not say how. He did not ask. He understood that some losses you carry without setting them down on a table for company. We walked. We kept walking. There was nowhere that wanted 4 of us. Her eyes moved to the sleeping child. "I told them we would find a roof before the worst cold. I did not know if it was true when I said it." "It's true now," he said. She looked at him across the coals for a long moment, and something in her face that had been braced since the first morning went quiet. Then she drew something from inside her coat. Small, dark, worn smooth. She held it to the firelight, and he saw it was a stone, river-rounded, a vein of pale running through the middle of it. She turned it once in her fingers, the way a person handles a thing that is fragile and important, though a stone is neither. "My mother carried this," she said, her mother before her. "It is the only thing we didn't lose." She held it a moment longer. Then she did a thing he didn't expect. She reached across the coals and set it in his open hand. It was warm from her body and heavier than it looked, the kind of weight a stone has after it has been underwater a long time. He did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He looked at the pale vein in the firelight, and then he gave it carefully back, the way she had handled it, with 2 fingers, lightly. "You keep that," he said. "But thank you for letting me hold it." She closed her hand around it and put it away. She did not smile, but the line of her shoulders eased, and she stayed sitting there as the coals went lower, neither of them needing to fill the quiet. He thought about his wife and felt the old ache, but it sat differently now. The grief had not gone anywhere. Grief did not go when you were ready, but for the first time in 2 winters, it was not the only thing in him. He banked the fire. The 4 of them slept close to its warmth, and he lay near, not among them and not apart, and looked up at the patched roof he could not see in the dark and knew was whole. It was not a family. The word was too small and too large at once for what this was. But it was no longer only him under that roof, and that, he understood, was the thing that had quietly changed. The days that followed found a rhythm, and the rhythm was work. They turned the dead fields a row at a time. He broke the crust with the plough, and the second sister walked behind, and broke the clods her own way, with her hands, kneeling, working the tired soil loose so it could breathe. They were not planting for a market. They were planting for the table, enough to carry 5 through a winter, the way a household feeds itself and no more. He showed them the depth for the seed, and they showed him they had done it before, somewhere, in a life none of them spoke of. The eldest cut hay from the low meadow, and the sisters carried it up through the high gable door into the loft, armload on armload, and stacked it dry and tight the way it had to be stacked, or it would rot or worse. He had told them once, plain, that wet hay packed close could heat on its own and take a barn down in the night. After that, they spread each load to dry in the sun before any of it went up. They did not need telling twice. The child had work too. She gathered eggs from the 2 hens they had, and she named the hens, and the names changed daily, and no one kept up. On a clear, cold evening, they ate together for the first time, all 5 of them, at the table he had mended inside the house. He set the bowls out and went to sit on the floor by the hearth, leaving the chairs for them. He did not think about it. He just did it. The eldest looked at him on the floor for a moment, then took a chair, and the others followed, and the child climbed up beside her and swung her feet. They ate the beans and the dark bread together, and the child told a story about the hens that could not possibly have been true, and the eldest made the low sound that was almost a laugh, and the warmth in the small room was a thing he could feel on his skin. It was not quite a family. The word was still too small for it. But it was 5 people under one whole roof, eating from one pot, and a year ago he had eaten alone in a house he could not stand. Later he stepped out to bank the yard fire, and that was when he saw it. A light, far off, up on the ridge road that ran along the high edge of the land. It sat there a moment, the small, steady glow of a lantern on a wagon or a horse, and then it moved on east and was gone behind the rock. He stood in the cold and watched the place where it had been. It was nothing, maybe. Folk travelled the ridge road, but the farm had sat forgotten so long that no one had reason to look at it, and now a light had slowed on the high edge of it. And slowed was the word that stayed with him. He did not go back in right away. He looked at the dark fields they had planted, and the barn full of dry hay, and the window where the others sat in the firelight, and he felt the old needle at the back of the neck, the one that warns you when something has turned its eyes your way. He said nothing to them about it that night. There was no shape to it yet. Nothing to name. But he banked the coals slower than usual, and before he slept, he looked once more at the ridge, where the road ran on into a dark he could not see the end of. The world beyond the fence had not finished moving. The official came on a Tuesday, on a grey horse, with a satchel of papers and no weapon he could see. He was a thin man in a town coat, county ink on his cuffs, and he rode down the mended lane, looking at the new fence, the way a man looks at something that surprises him. He stopped a polite distance from the porch and did not get down right away. "You'd be the one who bought the Harlow parcel," the official said. "I'd be him," the farmer said. He did not reach for anything. He stood easy on his own porch with his hands where they could be seen. Behind him, in the house, he heard the small sounds go still. He did not turn to them. "Came to confirm the rolls," the official said. He opened the satchel on the saddle and drew out a folded sheet. "Sold at the tax steps. Back taxes paid in full. That part's clean." He paused. "It's the rest I'm out here about." "Say it plain," the farmer said. "There's word you've got orcs living on the place." The official said it flat, the way a clerk reads a line, neither for it nor against. "4 of them, the word says." "Word's right," the farmer said. 4. They work the land with me. They've broke no law I know of, and neither have I." The official looked past him at the straight fence and the closed barn roof and the turned fields, and something in his face moved and settled. He was a man counting, the farmer saw, weighing what was written against what was in front of him. "No law against who you keep on your own deeded ground," the official said at last. "Not that I'm here to enforce." He folded the sheet back into the satchel. "I'll mark the rolls correct, and that's my piece of it done." "Then we're square," the farmer said. "We're square." But he did not turn his horse, yet. He sat a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice had dropped the clerk's flatness. "I'll tell you something I don't have to. The complaint that sent me out here didn't come from the county. It came from a man. He's been asking after this parcel down at the steps. asking who paid the taxes on it and how much, asking it loud. He gathered his reins. Land that's worthless 1 week and asked after the next. You take my meaning. I take it, the farmer said. He'll likely come himself, the official said. Men like that always do. He turned the grey horse back up the lane. I was never the trouble, friend. I just keep the rolls. The farmer watched him ride out until the ridge took him. Inside, the eldest was standing back from the window where she could not be seen from the lane. She had heard all of it. She did not ask what it meant. She had walked too far and lost too much not to know the shape of a thing coming. A man wants the land, she said. Looks that way, he said, now that it's worth wanting again. She was quiet. The child peered up at the two of them, sensing the change in the room, and for once said nothing. You can still put us out, the eldest said. Not bitter. A fact laid on the table for him to pick up or leave. It would be simpler for you. His quarrel is with the land. We are the part that makes it harder. He thought about that. Then he shook his head, once. I didn't close that roof over 4 people to open the door the first time somebody loud came asking, he said. Let him come. It was not a brave speech, and he did not mean it as one. It was the plainest true thing in him, said out loud. She looked at him a long moment and did not argue, and that was its own kind of answer. He came himself, as the official had said, on a Thursday, with 2 riders at his back. The farmer was at the fence when he saw the dust on the ridge road. He set down his hammer and walked to the front of the yard and waited, hands loose, the way he had waited for everything else that had come down that lane. The man who reined up was well-dressed and well-fed, the kind of soft that comes from paying others to do the hard part. He looked at the mended fence and the standing barn and the green rows coming up in fields that had been dead a month before, and he did not like what he saw. The farmer could read that much. A ruin he could have taken cheap. A working farm was a different price. You're the squatter bought the Harlow place out from under me, the man said. Bought it at the county steps, paid the taxes owed. There's no under anyone about it. I'd had my eye on that parcel 2 years, the man said. Was waiting on the price to fall far enough. His jaw tightened. Then some drifter walks up and pays the back taxes the week I meant to. That's how the steps work, the farmer said. Loudest eye doesn't win it. The paid bill does. The man's gaze went past him to the barn, where the eldest had come to stand in the door, tall and still, her sisters behind her in the dark of it. His mouth curled. And I hear you've filled it with orcs. He said the word like spitting. 4 of them. That's a thing the county would care about. A man harbouring their kind on land he's barely got a claim to. Folk around here would care more. He leaned on the saddle horn. Be a shame if your fences started coming down faster than you can raise them. Be a shame if a barn full of dry hay found a spark some night. It was said easy, almost friendly. That was the worst of it. The farmer felt the cold come up his spine, and he did not let it reach his face. You're threatening to burn me out, he said. Flat. Naming it. So it sat in the open between them, where the man would have to look at it. I'm telling you the land's a hard place, the man said, and you've made yourself friends of nobody to hold it with. Behind the farmer, a board shifted. The eldest had crossed the yard. She came and stood at his shoulder, all of her, and said nothing. The second sister came and stood at his other side. The third moved to the porch step. They did not raise their hands. They did not need to. They only placed themselves, one body at a time, around the man who had a roof over them, until the soft man on the horse was looking at 5 people standing on ground they had made whole. His 2 riders shifted in their saddles and looked at him for what came next. Something crossed his face. Not fear, exactly. The recalculation of a man who had come expecting 1 drifter and found a wall. This isn't finished, he said. He gathered his reins hard. I've got papers to look into. Claims older than your steps. I'll be back with more than words." "We'll be here," the farmer said. "We don't run." The man turned his horse, and his riders turned with him, and they went back up the lane and up the ridge road the way they had come, the dust hanging a long time in the cold air after them. The eldest watched the empty road beside him. "He will come back," she said. "He will," the farmer said. "Men like that always do." He looked at the barn full of dry hay and felt the weight of what had just been threatened settle in his chest. "We'll be ready for him when he does." He came back at dusk, when fire does the most work, and this time he brought 6 riders instead of 2. They came down off the ridge road in a line and spread across the front of the yard, and the soft man sat his horse at the center of them, with a folded paper in his fist and a lantern lit on a pole. The farmer had seen the dust early. There had been time to do the only thing worth doing, which was to stand. He stood at the front of the yard with the well at his back and the barn behind that. He did not hold a weapon. A weapon was an answer to a question he did not want to ask tonight. "I told you I'd be back with more than words," the man called. He shook the paper. "Filed claim. Older deed than your tax sale. The county'll sort it slow, but tonight I'm taking what's mine, and the orcs go off it first." "That paper means a courthouse," the farmer said. "Not a torch at dusk. If your claim's good, you don't need 6 men and a lantern." That landed. He saw it land. A man with a true deed comes in daylight with a clerk. This man had come in the dark. Then the others came out of the barn. The eldest first, tall and unhurried, and she crossed the yard and stood at his right shoulder. The second sister came and stood at his left. The third took the porch step above them. They placed themselves the way they had before, one body at a time, and this time they did not stop. They stood, and they were still, and the stillness was louder than any shout. Not one of them reached for anything. That was the thing the riders could not answer. There was nothing to fight, only people standing on their own ground in the falling dark, refusing to move. The soft man's horse shifted under him. He looked at the 4 sisters and the man among them, and he counted. The farmer watched him do it. He counted the cost of a thing started here that could not be taken back, against a deed that might or might not hold in a court. He counted his 6 riders, who had come for an easy burning, and now sat looking at a wall of still figures, no longer sure. One of the riders let his hand fall slack from his coat. Then another. The line of them lost its shape. And up on the ridge road, at the high, dark edge of the land, something moved. A shape, and then more than one, gathered at the rim where the road ran in. Tall shapes, still as the sisters were still, watching down into the yard. The soft man saw them too. He could not have said what they were in the dark, only that the count had changed, and not in his favor. Something crossed his face, not fear exactly, but the recognition that this was a different kind of ground than he had ridden onto, the kind a man does not walk off the same way he came. He sat with it a long moment. Then he folded the paper away. "This goes to the county," he said. His voice had lost its ease. "Not like this, the county. That's the right place for it," the farmer said. "Bring your deed there. We'll bring ours." The man pulled his reins. The riders turned with him, glad to turn, and the line of them went back up the ridge road, and whatever had gathered at the high edge let them pass and did not follow. The yard was quiet. No one had raised a hand. No spark had touched the hay. The eldest let out a breath beside him. "They came down off the ridge for us," she said, looking up at the empty rim. "Our own. We did not know any were left to come." "Then you're not as alone as you thought," the farmer said. "Neither of us is." The soft man took it to the county, as he said he would, and the county was slow, and in the end the paid bill at the tax steps held against an old deed that no one could fully prove. Word came back up the ridge road on a clerk's paper. The land was his, free and clean. He read it once and set it on the table and went back to work, because the work did not stop for paper either way. The season turned the way seasons do out here, not all at once. The cold broke a little at a time. Then one morning there was green standing in the fields that had been dead the month he bought them, real rows, ankle-high and climbing. He stood at the corner post and looked down the long fence that ran true the whole way. And it held. The barn roof was sound over the dry hay. The well had a new rope. Board by board and post by post, the ruin had been made into a place a person could live. He had not done it alone. That was the part that still sat strange in him, in a good way, like a room you forgot you had. By high summer, the work had a shape to it that no one had to be told. The sisters knew the land now as well as he did. The second one walked the fence line each morning the way he did, looking for the rail that had slipped. The third had a hand with the hens and the small garden by the house. The eldest worked beside him in the field and did not need to be asked for anything, and they passed whole afternoons in the kind of companionable quiet that does not need filling. The child grew. She still told her circular stories, and no one corrected them, and the fox was still sometimes a star. She had stopped flinching at sudden sounds. He marked that, and said nothing, but he marked it. It was not quite a family. The word had seemed too small for it once. Now it seemed too small the other way, like a coat a man had grown into. There was no single word for 5 people who had been given to each other by hard roads and a cheap deed, and he had stopped looking for one. One evening the eldest came and sat by his fire, the way she had the night of the one fire, and held out her hand. The stone lay in her palm, dark and river-smooth, the pale vein running through it. "My mother carried this for the place we lost," she said. "I have carried it for the place we did not have." She looked out at the green fields and the standing barn. "I think it can stop being a thing carried now." She pressed it into his hand and closed his fingers over it, and this time she didn't take it back. He held it for a long moment. It was warm and heavier than it looked, the kind of weight a stone has after it has been under water a long time and finally set down on dry ground. He understood what she was giving him and what she was saying about all of them, and he did not have words equal to it. So he did the thing he did best. He walked to the corner post of the fence they had built, and he set the stone into the ground at its foot, pressed deep where it would stay. A marker. Not for grief anymore, for the thing that had been built on top of it. He came back to the fire and sat down among them, not apart and not at the edge, just among them, and watched the light go gold over the fields they had brought back from the dead. By the end of summer, the farm did not look like the cheapest in the county anymore. The fields came in heavy. They cut and stacked and put up what would carry 5 through the winter, and then some, the way a household does when it means to stay. The hayloft was full again, dry and tight. The loose hay spread in the sun before any of it went up. The rule kept without anyone saying it. The fence ran true around the whole of it. The barn stood square. A man could stand at the gate now and not see a single broken thing. In the evenings they ate at the table inside, all of them. The chairs full and the floor no longer needed. He had given up the floor a long time ago. The child had her own seat now, and an opinion about which seat it was. The hens had survived their many names. The fire in the yard was one fire, and had been for a long time. He woke each morning before the sun, and lay a moment in the quiet, and listened to the house breathe around him, 4 sleepers and himself, and the quiet did not hurt the way it used to. Some things changed slow, and he had stopped expecting them to. This one had changed all the same. One evening he and the eldest stood at the corner post where the stone was set in the ground, and watched the light pour down into the valley in one long gold wave, the way it did out here at the end of a good day. You ever think about the ones up on the ridge, he said, the night they came? Every day, she said. They did not come down. They watched, and they let it be enough, and they went back to wherever they have been keeping themselves. She was quiet a moment. There are more of us out there than I let myself believe. Somewhere, holding on the way we held on. They know where you are now, he said. They do? She looked up at the dark line of the ridge road, where it ran on past the high edge of the land and into country he had never seen. Someday some of them may come down that road for more than watching, hungry maybe, hunted, the way we were. He thought about that. He looked at the full barn and the strong fence and the heavy fields, and at the four of them who had been strangers in his hayloft a season ago. He thought about the man he had been the day he bought this place, who had paid everything he had to be left alone, and how wrong that man had been about what he needed. Then we'll have a roof for them, he said. We've gotten good at making room, and there's land past the south fence we haven't touched yet. She looked at him then, the long, steady look from the first morning, except that the bracing was gone out of it. You would do it again, she said. All of it. For strangers. I did it once, and it turned out to be the best thing I ever built, he said. A man doesn't argue with that. She did not answer. She did not need to. They stood at the fence a while longer as the gold went out of the sky, and far off the ridge road ran on into the dark, empty tonight, but a road all the same, and roads carry what they carry. The world beyond the fence had not finished moving, but here, inside it, the work had held, and the people had held, and that was enough to sleep on. Did you enjoy the story? Subscribe to the channel to watch more stories like this one. Leave a like. It helps the channel a lot. And drop a comment down below. I always read them and use your feedback to make our content better.